Saul was able to just simply say, look, God has blessed us this day in Israel. Hey, let's continue to rejoice. I'm not going to get back at anybody. Great man in the very beginning of his rulership. Saul was the man who had the great looks. He had wealth, great stature. He was a man who was every woman's dream. He looked self-sufficient. He looked independent. He looked as though he was in need of no one. And that's the kind of men that women usually fall in love with. Isn't that right? Right? Crazy about them, right? But once they marry them, they find out that they can't love them because this man needs no one. You can't love someone that doesn't need you, right? So women, why don't you just get a picture of the macho man, hang him on the wall, and grab your little short man and love him to death, okay? 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 All right? Love him to death, all right? 1 Samuel 15, verse 22. 1 Samuel 15, verse 22. Brother Forson, I'd like you to read this. 1 Samuel 15, verse 22, you find in the 13th chapter, Saul intrudes on the priestly office. 1 Samuel, the 15th chapter, verse 22, Saul disobeys God right out, okay? Folks, here's what happened to Saul. What happened to Saul is what happens to many of us, okay? You see, Saul was a great king in the beginning, not because of his size, not because of his spirit of prophecy, not because God had changed his heart, not because of his wealth, but he was great because of his dependence upon God, his obedience to God. He was great in the beginning because of that. He was, in fact, a man. He was the model for all Israel. Israel could therefore be the model for all the world. But Saul, like many of us, began to believe the voice of the people. Man, you sure are great. Man, oh man, I've never seen anybody like you. Oh, you're the greatest, man. Look at those big muscles, and oh, you're such a macho man. You deserve this, you deserve that. You don't have to put up with this, you don't have to put up with that. And then he began to think what the people said. You see, faith comes by hearing, okay? And the people kept pumping this guy, and he got beside himself, right? 1 Samuel 15, verse 22, he simply disobeyed God. And now look what the text says. And Samuel said, the Lord has great delight in sacrifice. He was supposed to destroy those Amalekites, but did not. Read. As in obeying the voice of the Lord. Read. Behold, to obey is better than giving 10%. To obey is better than coming here to worship. Okay? You see, in Catholicism, when you do something wrong, you do penance. And you know, many people in the Church of Christ are Catholicized, okay? Because they believe that while they're doing their wrong, living in sin, they actually believe that coming here 3 times a day or 3 times a week is going to make it all right. Giving $100 on Sunday is going to make it all right. I've done my penance. Sure, I do a little wrong on the side, Brother Devore, but look at all this good I do. Okay? We haven't gotten it out of them yet, Brother Butler. We haven't gotten it out of them yet. Okay? Look, to obey is better than your sacrifice. And to listen to God than the fat of rams. Read. For rebellion, I thought he simply disobeyed. But the text says disobedience is rebellion, folks. It's shaking a fist of rebellion in the face of God. Read. And stubbornness is as iniquity. Inequality is the word for iniquity. And idolatry. Wow. Disobedience to God is a form of idolatry. You see, when you cannot listen to the God of the Bible, you're listening to the God of your mind. When you don't let the thoughts of the God of heaven rule your life, you're letting the thoughts of you rule your life, and you're putting your thoughts above God's thoughts, and therefore you're worshiping the God of your mind instead of the God of the Bible, folks. Isn't that something? And that's where Saul was. Humble beginning, folks, but he became what we called a driven man, only gratified by accomplishments. Always talking about his accomplishments. This pumps his male ego, you see. He's preoccupied with symbols of accomplishments. He must always have these tangibles that say, I have arrived, all around him. The driven man, number 3, always in an uncontrolled pursuit of expansion. Always trying to conquer or possess something new. The driven man has a limited regard for integrity. He becomes progressively deceitful until he begins to deceive himself. Saul thought that he was still a worshiper and lover of God in the midst of all of this stuff. Isn't that something? Okay? Limited and undeveloped people skills. Folks, we usually lay our hands on people like that in the church. People who are talented without people skills. They get the job done. Task oriented. And after they have completed all the tasks, there's a bunch of dead bodies around them. And we say at least they got the job done. But at what cost? To the cost of many souls whom Jesus died for. I'll be home in a minute, folks, so don't leave me. Okay? Highly competitive. Always in competition with someone. That's the way Saul was, remember? Saul has killed his thousands and David has killed his 10,000s, and this enraged Saul. Okay? Enraged Saul. It enrages some of us when someone else gets the spotlight. Okay? Light don't shine on us. Okay? Possesses a volcanic force of anger, can erupt at any time. That was Saul. And then he was abnormally busy. From being a called man, he became a driven man. Okay? All right? As called, his life was in sync with the Word of God. As driven, he became the God of his own life and drove himself to his own untimely death. For what? To boost the ego and the God of his own mind. What was at stake? All Israel, Saul. You did not model God before Israel, so Israel, all the young men who admired the great king, they began to imitate the character of the man they admired most, and that was Israel's king. And therefore all Israel would have a problem modeling God because her king did not model God. Well, we go to our next person. Saul fell. We go to the next one, Solomon. Remember Solomon, his prayer, 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter. God gave him wisdom, wealth. Remember, he built the temple, spent 14 years on his own house. Okay? And remember 1 Kings, the 11th chapter, he got what? Many strange wives. Folks, there is something about women that makes a man feel like a man. Isn't that right?
Come on now.
If you have any problems with feeling like a man, get a beautiful woman by your side. And let her start talking that stuff to you about, you such a fine man. Putting her hand on your chest, rubbing it, and things like that. And if you're older, put a hand on your stomach and call it the daddy belly. You know, how much she loves the daddy belly and all those kinds of things. There's just something about that, Brother Butler, that just really pumps you to no end.